This short documentary will talk about World War II, with primary focus on the United States' role on the war and the life in home front. Although World War II is not the longest military conflict in world history, it was easily the largest scale, deadliest, and most destructive conflict in history. It involved more than 30 countries and killed more than 50 million people all over the world, many of those by mass murder. Among these were about 6 million Jews murdered in Nazi concentration camps as part of Hitler's final solution, now known as the Holocaust. There were also more than 100 million people more who were physically and psychologically wounded. Sparked by Adolf Hitler's invasion of Poland in 1939, the war would drag on for 6 deadly years until the final Allied defeat of both Nazi Germany and Japan in 1945. In September 1939, Britain and France declared war on Germany following the latter's invasion of Poland. Hitler and his Nazi Party rose to power amidst the economically and politically unstable Germany. He signed strategic treaties with Italy and Japan in order to further his plans of world domination. Major countries fought as partners in one of the two major alliances, the Axis and the Allies. The three personal partners in the Axis alliance were Germany, Italy, and Japan, while the Allied forces included Great Britain, France, and eventually United States and Soviet Union. The Axis powers had two common interests: one, territorial expansion and foundation of empires based on military conquest, and two, destruction of Soviet communism. After its involvement in the First World War, America showed little interest in maintaining a military presence in Europe. Many American cynics at that time believed that not much should be done for countries that Americans had already rescued or defeated once. At the beginning of the war in Europe, United States and Soviet Union were concentrated on internal politics, so they didn't immediately participate. Even after the beginning of World War II in September 1939, powerful isolationist forces in the US Senate and in the country in general remained. The entire country is at odds on joining the war or not. However, on December 7, 1941, Japanese staged a surprise attack on the American naval fleet at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, claiming the lives of more than 2,300 troops. This unprovoked act shocked and outraged the American people and unified the public opinion in favor of entering World War II. One day later, President Roosevelt asked Congress to declare war against Japan, and the declaration passed with just one dissenting vote. After 3 more days, Germany and Italy, who are allied with Japan, declared war on the United States, officially drawing the country into a global war with Great Britain, France, and Soviet Union as allies. Against the Axis powers, the Allies had to fight two distant and very different fronts, one being in Europe, led by Germany and Italy, and one in the Pacific, led by Japan. In the months after Pearl Harbor, the nation swiftly mobilized its human and material resources for war. The opportunities and sacrifices of wartime would change America in profound and sometimes unexpected ways. The primary task facing America in 1941 was raising and training a credible military force. By the end of that year, America's military had grown to nearly 2.2 million soldiers, sailors, airmen, and marines, majority of whom were drawn from civilian life. Many were volunteers, but majority entered the military through the draft. By volunteering, though, men and women could choose their branch of service, as opposed to being assigned to one if drafted. Raising an armed force was just part of America's war effort. That force had to be supplied with the uniforms, guns, tanks, ships, warplanes, and other weapons and equipment needed to fight. With its vast human and material resources, the United States had the potential to supply both itself and its allies. But first, the American economy had to be converted to war production, which virtually eliminated unemployment. To help build the armaments necessary to win the war, women found employment as electricians, welders, and riveters in defense plants. Until that time, such positions had been strictly for men only. With Britain facing Germany in the war in Europe, the United States was the only nation capable of combating the Japanese army. After a long stream of Japanese victories, the U.S. Pacific Fleet won the Battle of Midway in June 1942, which proved to be a turning point in the war. In mid-1943, Allied naval forces began an aggressive counterattack against Japan, involving a series of amphibious assaults on key Japanese-held islands in the Pacific. This island-hopping strategy proved successful, and Allied forces moved closer to their ultimate goal of invading the Japanese homeland. On June 6, 1944, the Allies began a massive invasion of Europe, landing 156,000 British, Canadian, and American soldiers on the beaches of Normandy, France. Hitler poured all the remaining strength of his army into Western Europe, ensuring Germany's defeat in the east. Soviet troops soon advanced into Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, and Romania, while Hitler gathered his forces to drive the Americans and British back from Germany in the Battle of the Bulge, the last major German offensive of the war. Germany formally surrendered on May 8, when Soviet forces had occupied much of the country. At this time, Hitler was already dead, having committed suicide on April 30th in his Berlin bunker. At the Potsdam Conference of July 1945, U.S. President Harry S. Truman joined Churchill and Stalin in discussing the ongoing war with Japan and the peace settlement with Germany. On August 10th, the Japanese government issued a statement declaring that they would accept the terms of the Potsdam Declaration, and on September 2nd, U.S. General Douglas MacArthur accepted Japan's formal surrender aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay. This marked the end of World War II, the most devastating international conflict in world history.